Hello and welcome to the Savvy Gadgetz channel and to Astroneer. Now, I haven't looked at Astroneer for some time and it's had some interesting updates which I'd like to cover, as well as doing perhaps a getting started base build. So, with no further ado, let's have a look at it. Hello and welcome to Astroneer. Now, if you've never played Astroneer, then where have you been? Basically, what it boils down to is it's a exploration, resource gathering and crafting game. And I have to say, I love it to bits. I've played it for a long time and spent many hours doing it. So, I haven't played it for some time though, and it has been updated with some core gameplay, not mechanics, but the way in how you play the game and what you need to do has been changed. Some consistency has been added and some new bits and bobs have turned up. So let's start off with resources. Now, resources in the original, most of them are still there. The basics of gathering compound and resin, which are the building blocks of your first starter bits and pieces, are still there, along with ammonia and hematite, so copper, other bits and pieces. But you also have clay now, as well as quartz. They weren't in there; they're now gatherable materials. Graphite was there, and you could mine malachite, lithium. Lithium looks different. It's got a new model for it. And if you want to have a look at these, I've actually posted some of them on the Facebook page. So look for Savvy Gadgetz on Facebook and you can see the pictures there. So, but some of the high-end stuff that you may want to build for your base, you can't actually mine in a traditional sense of the word. You basically, with the chemistry lab, this is a new platform. What you do is and out pops one of these blue sort of like handheld devices, and they all have this. Now, previously, some of the platforms that you interact with, they had like a floating menu on them. That's all gone. It's now all of these sort of little blue pullouts. So they were there months and months ago, but now all of the platforms have them. So back to resources. So if you wanted to make rubber, you need organic, which is plant life, and resin, and you combine the two and you end up with rubber. So you can't actually gather rubber. It's the same with plastic. So all of these aluminium alloy made from aluminium and copper. So combining two resources that you can gather into one to make an alloy. And it's the same with tungsten and graphite and hydrogen. Now, hydrogen's quite an important one as well, because that was originally, hydrogen was a rocket fuel. And if we look over here on the rocket, the hydrogen are these pink canisters. Now, originally, to get those, you just needed an atmospheric condenser. So imagine my surprise when I got the atmospheric condenser and it doesn't actually produce hydrogen. Instead, it gathers resources from the atmosphere. So this has changed as well. So, and depending on what planet you're on, depends on what gases it can sort of suck out of the atmosphere. So let's have a look. Well, maybe I'll take that one. Alright, there we go. So if I want to gather hydrogen, because it's got a green button, the atmosphere here on the starter planet contains hydrogen, but it doesn't contain argon. So if I wanted to get argon gas, I need to go to one of the other planets. The atmosphere contains argon gas, and this is where the core new mechanical thinking is to get you off planet so that you can gather these gases, because these gases are now used as what these sort of like all these round ones, so there's sulfur and argon and methane, nitrogen and hydrogen, and this, that and the other. What's that on? And helium. So brown one's hydrogen, right? So you can see that they see this one here. Each one has 5 charges in it, and you use those in the chemistry lab. And when you're trying to combine some of these, you see that this one, if I wanted to create hydrazine, which normally, which before the atmospheric condenser would just give you, you actually have to combine ammonium, 2 lots of ammonium and some hydrogen, just to make 1 lot of hydrazine. So you need to gather some ammonium, which you should find lying about, or you can still use the soil platform, you bung soil in it and say, "Oh, give me a resource out of it." So that's a big change from months and months and months ago to how it is now. Okay, so let's have a look at the rockets, because the rockets have changed quite a bit. And once again, there's some important changes about the rockets. Right, so let's just grab one off of here. Again, the hydrazine and the solid fuel. Right, okay. So previously, you got one of those, or what you got was a rocket, or sort of like, it was like a platform in itself, but it had the rocket on it. You just put fuel into a big sort of glass container underneath it. That's gone. So instead you have 3 different types of rocket. You've got the small one, and there's a medium one, and there's a large one. Now imagine the medium one only has one of these sort of like eye slots in, and that's for putting cargo in so that you can take stuff with you when you move off planet. But back to the thrusters. So this hydrazine thruster has 3 containers on it, which is the fuel that you use, and you can keep reusing for as long as you've got fuel. The solid fuel thruster though, and here's the magic word, if you look underneath the title, it's consumable. So, and this is where I originally got caught out, because I thought, it's like the old one, and I just went off into the wild blue yonder and got stuck because these only have limited use, because I didn't notice that it said consumable. And so what this will do, this will get you off planet to a planet, and then off of that planet and back. So it's good for about 2 trips. So I actually got unlucky where I went to a planet, picked a landing site. The landing site for some reason was no good, and the rocket just launched back into space, and when I landed again I was stuck because the thruster was finished and done with. So I then had to get the materials together in order to make another thruster. So after you've used them a few times, as you can see, I've got a few lying about, and I'm sure I've got others in outer space somewhere. They're now just salvageable items, which you put into a shredder. Okay, so the other thing about rockets is they came pretty much prepared with everything you needed in them. But now, the Oxygenator, which is a buyable item from the tab menu, so you have to craft and you have to equip your rocket with one, otherwise when you go to another planet you won't have an oxygen supply. So I'll put that back in there so that's more useful. And let's put the thruster under there. Okay, so there's a change there. The other thing is you can now craft these, the shelters, and on the side you can craft that as well. The power supply, which is called an RTG, I believe. So let me find that quickly. I think we need to go up a couple of levels. Okay, so it's worth mentioning this menu. That when you do research, so you wander around and you find big stuff, and you put them in these research chambers, and they are worth bytes, and you use bytes. It's kind of like the currency to buy like these blueprints. But this originally was split up into sort of like science, engineering, and that kind of thing. Now it's just tiered, so you've got tier 1 items, tier 2 items, tier 3 and tier 4, represented by the nubbles on the end. Look. Right, and so there we go, there's the shelter. But what we're after is the RTG. I think it's tier 2, yeah, there it is, it's underneath here. So you can now create medium generators, which you couldn't before. So medium solars and medium turbines, medium batteries were there before, and the RTG, which is that power supply in there, which goes into a shelter. However, building that is an absolute pain in the neck because it uses this nanocarbon alloy, and you have to go through so many steps with the science lab platform in order to make one. You have to combine titanium alloy and steel. To make steel you need, you know, a gas from another planet, and you need material which you can only find from another planet by going around and gathering it. So some big updates, some big changes. Okay, but other than that, the rest is fairly the same. Let me just show you. Let's break down this nanocarbon alloy. It's the most complicated one that you need to make in the game, and I have actually made one because you need one to make this, which is on the side. It's actually an oxygenator, and it's a sort of like a personal item which goes on your backpack. The oxygenator, I don't think is actually worth building, to be fair, unless because it kind of replaces the gas tanks on your back, these blue tanks on your back, but then you also need batteries. And I'll show you why. Let's just walk away from the tether so I don't have an oxygen supply. Okay, so let's turn it on. And as you can see, I'm not running out of oxygen, but it does use power. And now I've got no power, now my oxygen is starting to drain. And that drained pretty quick, which is why I think it's probably not worth it. I think they really need to sort of tone that, the rate at which it chews up the backpack power for it to be really useful. So if you're tempted by that, my advice is don't be tempted by that. Alright, okay, that's what's going on there. It's still on. Turn it off, I don't really need it. Okay. So, when you get to a stage that you need to go off planet, here's a word of advice. Before you go, make sure that you have built one of these, which is a medium solar and a medium wind turbine. Now you can actually carry these in their packaged form on your backpack, and when you get to the planet that you're going to, you can effectively unpack them, because most of the time when you get to the planet, the amount of time I've spent trying to search for those items on the planet's surface has been quite ridiculous, because you end up making thousands and thousands and thousands of tethers to go and find these scrap items here, because sometimes these have batteries on them or resources, or they will have a proper working solar panel, whether it's a big or a small one, or a wind turbine of some sort. And it's just worth taking the big ones with you. Okay, so, and just to round that bit off, I think you're making this one. So the oxygenator. Now that's the one for the rockets and for these shelters. They're not too bad to get off. The ceramic's another good one. This is another good example of how resources have changed. Now ceramic is made from clay, and like aluminium and copper, you take the raw form of it, in which case it's clay, you put it on the smelter, which is that device just there, we'll go and look at it, and it turns it into ceramic for you. Right, so medium generator, medium size, so you need glass. Now glass is quartz on the burner turns into glass, and of course copper comes from malachite. And then the wind turbine again needs glass but needs ceramic, so you use clay on the burner, you get a ceramic. So I don't think we've got any clay. I think we've got some ceramic kicking about there. And so at the end of the day, there's quite a few different new and interesting. Oh, there we go, copper material. The zinc's another one. That's a new mineable one. But yeah, so there's some glass, and you see underneath it says refined quartz. Now, I don't think we've got any ceramic. Tungsten, tungsten, tungsten. I don't think we do. See, I have an awful lot of tungsten. Well, I had to go to another planet for that, so brought back as much as I possibly could. Carbon is the organic material, so this is different. So on the smelter with an organic material, we've got building up carbon as part of the chemistry there to build other things. So there we have it. Those are the updates and a couple of tips on how to get yourself started. Just one last thing, and that's this little guy. This guy's new. It's the tractor, a rough terrain vehicle, and it is. And also this trailer, which is also quite useful. They're not very big, but they're kind of your starter vehicles. And then once you build up, you can have the big rover like this one, which was already in the game. But the tractor's new, and it's a lot of fun to drive about with. So there you go. Get into Astroneer if you haven't already. It is good fun. You can play it cooperatively with your friends, and it's just a really nice game to play. Like I say, I've logged in loads of hours on this. So once again, thank you very much for watching. If there's a game that you'd like me to take a look at and review or do hints and tips on, by all means get in touch in the comments. But until then, I hope you've enjoyed this video and you found it useful. I will do a base build set of videos for this as well, so give people the idea of how to get started, what research looks like, because it's been a while. Okay, so thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Bye bye.